The world watched as Marcus Jordan's name went uncalled during the 2013 NBA Draft. 60 selections came and went. 60 dreams fulfilled. But for the second son of basketball's greatest legend, there was only silence. Some called it genetics skipping a generation. Others whispered about the impossible burden of the Jordan name. For Marcus, it was more than a professional disappointment. It was an identity crisis. Who are you when your entire life has been spent chasing your father's legacy, only to fall short in such a public way? What happened next would not only transform Marcus's life, but would eventually impact thousands of athletes facing the same devastating transition. His journey from the darkest moment of his life to creating a revolutionary program that helps athletes find purpose beyond sports is more inspiring than any championship his father ever won. This is the story of how Marcus Jordan stepped out of the greatest shadow in sports history and into his own light. Marcus Jordan couldn't remember a time when people didn't stare. At the grocery store, at school, at basketball games. It didn't matter where he went. People always looked at his dad first, then at him. That's what happened when your father was Michael Jordan, the greatest basketball player who ever lived. There he is, MJ's kid. Marcus heard the whispers as he walked through the halls of his middle school. He was 12 years old now, already, tall for his age, with hands that seemed a little too big for his arms, just like his dad's had been. Marcus tried to keep his head down as he walked to class. It never worked. By lunchtime, 3 different kids had asked if he could get his dad's autograph. 2 teachers had mentioned how exciting it must be to have his airness as a father. One even asked if Marcus could jump as high as Michael already. Not yet, Marcus had answered with a tight smile. Not ever, he thought to himself. At home that night, their mansion in Highland Park, Chicago, felt empty even though it was huge. His mom was at a charity event. His older brother Jeffrey was at basketball practice. His sister Jasmine was at a friend's house. And Dad? Dad was everywhere and nowhere at the same time. Michael Jordan's face smiled from magazine covers framed on the walls. His 6 NBA championship trophies gleamed in a special glass case in the main hall. His game-worn shoes, some worth thousands of dollars, sat in perfect rows in a room bigger than most people's apartments. Even when he wasn't home, which was often, Michael Jordan's shadow filled every corner of their house. Marcus wandered down to the indoor basketball court that took up most of the basement. The lights came on automatically. The polished wood floor shone like it was brand new. On one wall hung a giant painting of his dad soaring through the air, tongue out, ball raised high above his head in his famous jump man pose. Marcus picked up a basketball and began to dribble. The familiar sound echoed in the empty gym. Thump, thump, thump. He moved toward the basket, tried a spin move his dad had shown him last weekend, and missed the layup. Keep your elbow in, eyes on the rim, not the board. Marcus turned to see his father standing in the doorway. Michael Jordan didn't just enter rooms, he filled them completely. "I didn't hear you come home," Marcus said, chasing after the ball. "Just got back." Michael walked onto the court, his movements still graceful even in dress shoes and a business suit. "Let me see that shot again." For the next hour, they worked on Marcus's form, the spin move, the release point, the follow-through. Michael demonstrated, each part perfectly. The movements burned into his muscle memory from thousands of hours of practice. "Better," Michael said finally. "You're getting there." "Getting where?" Marcus wondered. "Getting to be like you? No one gets to be like you." Later that night, the family gathered for a rare dinner together. Uncle Larry, Michael's older brother, was visiting with his kids. "So, "Marcus," Uncle Larry said between bites of steak, "Coach Wilson tells me you're the best player on your youth team." Marcus stared at his plate. "I guess?" "He's being modest," Michael said. "He dropped 20 points in his last game." "Just like his old man." Uncle Larry laughed. "I remember when Mike was 12, already dunking on high school kids." "I can't dunk yet," Marcus said quietly. A brief silence fell over the table. "He will," Michael said confidently. "He's got Jordan blood." After dinner, Marcus escaped to his bedroom. The walls were covered with Chicago Bulls posters, most featuring his dad. He hadn't picked them out. They'd been there since they moved. In. Sometimes he thought about taking them down, but that felt like betrayal somehow. He sat at his desk and opened his laptop. A news article popped up on his homepage. "Jordan's son shows promise, but can he live up to the legacy?" Marcus clicked. It closed without reading. He'd seen enough headlines like that already. His phone buzzed with a text from his best friend Trey. "ESPN Classic showing your dad's 63 against Celtics right now. Sick." Marcus turned off his phone without replying. Before bed, he stopped by his trophy case. 5 MVP trophies from youth tournaments, 3 championship medals, 2 Most Improved awards. Not bad for most kids. Nothing compared to what sat in the hall downstairs. The next morning, Marcus woke up early. The house was still quiet. Alado slipped down to the court and practiced his shooting in the half-light. Shot after shot. His arms grew tired. Sweat dripped off his nose. 100 makes before breakfast, he whispered to himself, something he'd heard his dad say in an interview. When his arms felt like jelly and his shirt was soaked through, Marcus sank onto the bench and looked up at the giant painting of his father. The eyes seemed to follow him everywhere on the court. "I'm not you," Marcus whispered. "I'm never going to be you." But the world expected him to be. His teachers, his coaches, his teammates. Sometimes he thought even his dad expected it, though Michael had never said so directly. Marcus checked his phone. He'd made 68 shots out of hundreds of attempts. Not good enough. Not nearly good enough. Outside the basement windows, the sun was rising over Lake Michigan. Another day of being Michael Jordan's son was beginning. Another day of trying to shoot his way out of an impossible shadow. Marcus took a deep breath, picked up the ball, and walked back onto the court. 82 more shots to go before his father's record would be his. Before he could eat breakfast. Before he could feel worthy of his last name. He might never be the next Michael Jordan. But maybe, just maybe, he could be the first Marcus Jordan. He just had to keep shooting. 4 years later, Marcus Jordan stood in the crowded gym of Whitney Young High School in Chicago. The noise was deafening. Cameras flashed from every angle. College scouts filled an entire section of bleachers, clipboards, and stopwatches in hand. "Jordan with the ball at the top of the key," the announcer's voice boomed through the speakers. 15 seconds left. Whitney Young down by 1 in the state semifinals. Marcus dribbled between his legs, his eyes scanning the defense. At 16, he had grown to 6'3", with broad shoulders and the same intense focus his father was famous for. The defender guarding him stayed low, hands out, determined not to let Michael Jordan's son beat him. Time seemed to slow down. Marcus had been in this situation 1,000 times. In his dreams, in the basement court at home, in the shadow of his father's legacy. But this moment was real. This moment was his. He made his move. A quick crossover, then a burst of speed toward the basket. 2 defenders collapsed on him. Without looking, Marcus flipped the ball to his open teammate in the corner. Swish! The crowd erupted. Jordan with the assist. Whitney Young wins. They're going to the state championship. His teammates mobbed him at center court. Marcus smiled and celebrated, but part of him noticed what the announcer had said. Jordan with the assist, not Marcus with the assist. In Chicago, there was only one Jordan. In the locker room after the game, Coach Tyrone Rogers pulled Marcus aside. "Great game, son. You showed real leadership out there." "Thanks, Coach." Marcus toweled off his sweat-soaked face. "But Jimmy hit the winning shot. He deserves the credit." Coach Rogers shook his head. "That's what I'm talking about. Your vision. You had the shot, but you made the right basketball play instead. That's something your father—" He stopped himself, but it was too late. The comparison hung in the air between them. "Sorry," Coach Rogers said. "I know you're tired of hearing that." Marcus just nodded and headed for the showers. Outside the locker room, a small crowd waited. Reporters, college scouts, fans wanting autographs from the son of the legend. "Marcus, can we get a few words about tonight's game?" A microphone appeared in front of his face. "It was a team win," Marcus said, reciting the safe answers he'd learned to give. "Everyone contributed. We're focused on the championship now." As the reporters continued their questions, Marcus noticed two men in expensive suits standing off to the side. College scouts. He'd seen them at games before. "He's good, no doubt," one was saying to the other. "Quick hands, good court vision." "But he's no Michael," the other replied. "The kid got lucky tonight. If his last name wasn't Jordan, would we even be here?" Marcus felt his stomach tighten. He pretended not to hear as he pushed through the crowd toward the exit where his mother waited. Juanita Jordan gave her son a quick hug. "Your father called," she said, as they walked to the car. "He watched the live stream, said he's proud of you." Marcus nodded, but didn't reply. His father had promised to attend the game in person, but business meetings for Jordan Brand had taken priority. Again. That night, alone in his bedroom, Marcus pulled out a notebook from under his mattress. It was filled with newspaper clippings about his games, scouting reports, and his own private thoughts. On a fresh page, he wrote, "Game 26. 1-by-1, 17 points, 6 assists, 3 steals. They still only see the name on my jersey." The next morning at breakfast, his phone buzzed with a text from his father. "Smart play at the end. Championship next. No pressure. Just play your game. Love you." Marcus read it twice. His father rarely sent long messages. No pressure made him smile a little. There was always pressure when you were Michael Jordan's son. 2 weeks later, Whitney Young faced Lincoln Park High in the state championship game. The gym was even more packed than before. Marcus spotted his father sitting courtside, sunglasses on. Despite being indoors, security guards hovering nearby. The game was tight throughout. By the fourth quarter, Marcus had scored 22 points, but Lincoln Park still led by 3 with under a minute to play. During a timeout, Coach Rogers drew up a play. "Marcus, we're getting you the ball at the top. Look for your shot." The play worked perfectly. Marcus caught the pass, stepped back behind the three-point line, and let the ball fly. It dropped through the net with a satisfying swish. Tie game. Lincoln Park missed their next shot. Whitney Young had the ball with 10 seconds left. Again, the ball came to Marcus. The crowd rose to their feet. Michael Jordan leaned forward, on his seat. This time, Marcus didn't pass. He drove hard to the basket, rose up between 2 defenders, and laid the ball gently off the backboard and in as the buzzer sounded. Whitney Young had won the state championship. His teammates lifted him onto their shoulders as confetti fell from the ceiling. Later that night, at the team celebration, Marcus finally allowed himself to enjoy the moment. He had won on his own terms. Tomorrow, the comparisons to his father would start again. The pressure would return. But tonight, just for tonight, Marcus Jordan was exactly who he wanted to be. The recruitment letters had been piling up since Marcus's sophomore year of high school. North Carolina, his father's alma mater, sent a handwritten note from Coach Roy Williams every week. Duke, Kentucky, Kansas, and dozens of other top basketball programs wanted Michael Jordan's son. But as Marcus sat in his bedroom, surrounded by college brochures during his senior year, one school caught his eye: the University of Central Florida. Not a basketball powerhouse, not his father's choice, but maybe that was the point. UCF? Michael Jordan's voice carried a hint of disappointment when Marcus told him. They were sitting in Michael's office at the Jordan Brand headquarters in Portland. "Roy's been calling me about you for 2 years. Carolina would roll out the red carpet." "That's why I can't go there, Dad," Marcus said, meeting his father's gaze. "At North Carolina, I'd always be walking in your footsteps. I need to make my own path." Michael stared at his son for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Your decision. I'll support whatever you choose." 3 months later, Marcus moved into his dorm room at UCF in Orlando, Florida, over 1,000 miles from Chicago and the shadow of his father's statue outside the United Center. His roommate, Trevor Wilson, a computer science major from Tampa, had no interest in basketball. "So your dad's famous or something?" Trevor asked on move-in day, barely looking up from his laptop. Marcus smiled. "Or something." College basketball was different. The players were bigger, faster, stronger. During his first practice, Marcus struggled to keep up with the pace. Coach Kirksborough pulled him aside afterward. "Jordan, you're thinking too much out there. Trust your instincts." Marcus nodded, but inside he was wondering if his instincts were good enough. The Jordan name had gotten him here, but it wouldn't make the shots for him. His freshman season started slowly. Marcus came off the bench, averaging just 8 points per game. Online basketball forums buzzed with comments. "Jordan's kid is a bust. Guess basketball talent skips a generation. Should have stuck to selling shoes like Daddy." Marcus tried to ignore the noise, but sometimes he checked the comments late at night when he couldn't sleep. Each harsh word felt like a tiny cut. His sophomore year went better. Marcus earned a starting spot and helped UCF win their conference tournament for the first time in school history. The team made the NCAA tournament, but lost in the first round. Still, it was progress. During his junior year, Marcus's game reached new heights. He averaged 15.2 points per game and became known for his court vision and passing ability. Unlike his father, who had been a scoring machine, Marcus was developing into a true point guard who made everyone around him better. Then came the injuries. First, a sprained ankle during a game against Memphis. Marcus sat out 2 weeks, then rushed back too soon. Next, a more severe ankle injury during practice, a torn ligament that required surgery. Dr. Palmer, the team physician, delivered the news after reviewing the MRI. "You'll need at least 8 weeks of recovery after surgery. Season's over for you, son." Marcus called his father that night. "Bad luck," Michael said, "but you heal up. Come back stronger next year." "Dad, there's something else," Marcus said, his voice tight. "Before the injury, some NBA scouts were coming to games. One of them talked to me after our win against Houston." "That's good," Michael said. "What did he say?" Marcus hesitated. "He said I have good basketball IQ, but my athleticism is borderline for the NBA. He thinks I might go undrafted." The silence that followed seemed to stretch for miles between them. "Scouts don't know everything," Michael finally said. "I was passed over by 2 teams in my draft. You were still picked 3rd overall," Marcus said quietly. This guy was saying I might not get picked at all. Another long pause. "Do you believe him?" Marcus thought about the question. Did he believe the scout? Or did he believe in himself? "I don't know, Dad. I really don't know." The surgery went well, but recovery was slow and painful. Marcus spent hours in the training room working with Kevin Jones, the team's physical therapist. "Push through it," Kevin urged, as Marcus grimaced during ankle exercises. "This is where your future is decided, not on the court, but in how you handle setbacks." When Marcus returned for his senior year, he wore an ankle brace and had lost some of his quickness. But he'd gained something too, a deeper understanding of the game. He studied film obsessively, learned to anticipate plays before they developed, and became an extension of Coach Sparrow on the court. UCF had its best season in school history. They made it to the Sweet 16 of the NCAA tournament before losing to a powerhouse Kentucky team. Marcus finished with 19 points and 11 assists in his final college game. In the locker room afterward, a reporter from ESPN approached him. "Marcus, now that your college career is over, will you be entering the NBA draft? Following in your father's footsteps?" There it was again. The comparison, the expectation, the shadow. "Yes, I'll be declaring for the draft," Marcus said. "But I'm not trying to fill anyone's shoes but my own." After the press conference, Marcus found a man waiting for him outside the locker room. He wore a simple gray suit and carried a leather portfolio. "Marcus Jordan? Sam Parker, NBA scout for the Chicago Bulls." He extended his hand. "Got a minute to talk?" Marcus felt a flutter of excitement. The Bulls, his father's team. "Sure," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. They sat in the empty stands as the arena workers began cleaning up after the game. "I've been watching you all year," Sam said. "You've got a high basketball IQ, good court vision, strong leadership qualities." "Thank you," Marcus said, waiting for the but he knew was coming. Sam opened his portfolio and showed Marcus a sheet of numbers, measurements, statistics, comparisons to other point guards in the draft. "Here's the situation," Sam said, his voice kind but direct. "Your lateral quickness and vertical leap are below average for NBA point guards. Your three-point shooting is inconsistent. The ankle injuries haven't helped." Marcus nodded, trying to keep his expression neutral. "The draft is deep at point guard this year," Sam continued. "I think there's a place for you in professional basketball, but it might not be the NBA, at least not right away. European leagues, the G League, those could be good options to develop your game." Marcus stared at the empty court, the same court where he'd just played the final game of his college career. He thought about all the hours he'd spent training, all the comparisons to his father, all the dreams of proving himself at the highest level. "Thank you for being honest," he said finally. As they parted ways, Sam put a hand on Marcus's shoulder. "For what it's worth, I think you've got something special. It's just not the same thing your father had." That night, alone in his apartment near campus, Marcus called his father. "Dad, I need to know something, and I need the truth," he said. "Do you think I'm good enough for the NBA?" The silence that followed told Marcus everything he needed to know. Michael Jordan's voice finally came through the phone, quiet and measured. "Marcus, you're a good basketball player, better than most. But the NBA," his father paused, choosing his words carefully. "The NBA is different. It's not just about skill, it's about that extra gear, that thing that separates good from great." "The thing you have," Marcus said flatly. "The thing I had," Michael corrected. "Him." "But listen, son, there are many ways to succeed in life. Basketball is just one path." After they hung up, Marcus threw his phone across the room. It wasn't his father's fault. Michael Jordan had always been honest with him. Maybe too honest. But hearing the truth out loud hurt more than Marcus had expected. Despite the scout's warnings and his father's hesitation, Marcus declared for the 2013 NBA draft. He hired a trainer and moved back to Chicago, where he worked out 6 hours a day preparing for team tryouts. The invitations were slow to come. While other top college players participated in a dozen workouts with different teams, Marcus received just 3 invitations from the Bulls, the Hornets, owned by his father, and the Wizards, where his father had played. Nepotism invites, Marcus muttered to himself when the emails arrived. His father offered to help with connections, but Marcus refused. "I need to do this on my own," he insisted. The Bulls' workout went reasonably well. Marcus knew their home court better than some of their players, having spent countless hours there as a child. He shot well, showed good passing skills, and impressed the coaches with his basketball knowledge. Sam Parker, the scout he'd met after his final college game, approached him afterward. "Good workout," Sam said. "You've improved your shooting, Satanant to know. I have a chance?" Marcus asked directly. Sam hesitated. "We have the 20th pick. You're on our board, but I can't promise anything." It wasn't much, but it was hope. Marcus clung to it during the next few weeks as draft day approached. The night before the draft, the Jordan family gathered at Michael's mansion in Highland Park. Jeffrey, Marcus's older brother who had played basketball at Illinois, flew in from his job in Portland. His sister Jasmine came home from her studies at Syracuse. Even his mother Juanita, who had divorced Michael years earlier, attended the family dinner. "Whatever happens tomorrow, we're proud of you," Juanita told Marcus, hugging him tight. Michael seemed distracted throughout dinner, checking his phone often. Marcus wondered if his father was working behind the scenes, calling in favors, trying to ensure his son would be drafted. The thought both comforted and disturbed him. After everyone else had gone to bed, Marcus found his father in his trophy room, staring at his 6 NBA championship trophies. "Dad, you okay?" Michael turned, seeming surprised to see Marcus there. "Just thinking about my draft night. I was so nervous, waiting for my name to be called." "Did you know you'd go third?" Michael shook his head. "I hoped for first. But Houston took Hakeem. Portland took Sam Bowie." He smiled slightly. "That worked out okay for Chicago." "And for you," Marcus added. "And for me," Michael agreed. "But draft position doesn't determine your career, Marcus. It's what you do after that counts." Marcus nodded, but inside he was thinking, easy to say when you're picked third. Draft day dawned clear and bright in Chicago. Marcus chose his outfit carefully: a charcoal gray suit, white shirt, and red tie. Jordan colors, Bulls colors. The draft was being held at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, but Marcus had decided not to attend in person. Too much pressure, he'd told his family. Instead, they gathered in the media room of Michael's mansion, where a giant screen showed the ESPN broadcast. As expected, the first picks went quickly. Top college stars and international prospects heard their names called and walked across the stage to shake the NBA commissioner's hand. Marcus watched their faces. The joy, the relief, the validation. The Bulls' pick at number 20 approached. The family grew quiet. Michael's phone rang, and he stepped out of the room to take the call. With the 20th pick in the 2013 NBA draft, the Chicago Bulls select Tony Snell from the University of New Mexico. Marcus felt the room spin. His mother reached for his hand. Jeffrey put an arm around his shoulders. No one spoke. Michael returned a few minutes later, his face impossible to read. "Dad?" Marcus asked. "I called them," Michael admitted. "They said they need shooting guards more than point guards this year. Basketball decision." The draft continued. Pick after pick went by. Teams Marcus had never even worked out for selected. Point guards he had outplayed in college. The first round ended. So did the second. 60 names were called. None of them were Marcus Jordan. When the broadcast ended, the family sat in uncomfortable silence. Finally, Jasmine spoke up. Their loss. "Marcus, you're still amazing." Marcus nodded, trying to smile for his sister's sake. "I'm going to get some air," he said, standing up. He walked out to the backyard basketball court where he'd spent so much of his childhood. The night was warm, stars hidden by Chicago's light pollution. Marcus took off his suit jacket, rolled up his sleeves, and picked up a basketball from the rack. He dribbled slowly, the familiar rhythm usually so comforting, now empty. He took a shot, missed, took another, missed again. It felt like all the skill had been drained from his body, along with his dreams. His phone buzzed in his pocket. A text from a college teammate. "Sorry, man. You deserved better." What's next? What was next? Marcus had never considered a future without basketball. Since he could walk, his path had seemed predetermined. Now that path had ended, and he stood at the edge of an unfamiliar darkness. His phone buzzed again. This time it was ESPN, with a news alert. Michael Jordan's son goes undrafted. Marcus turned off his phone and sat alone on the court, the basketball beside him. Inside the house, he could hear his family talking in hushed tones, probably trying to figure out how to comfort him. But there was no comfort for this kind of disappointment. Tomorrow, sports websites would analyze his failures. They would compare his statistics to his father's, his vertical leap to his father's, his entire existence to his father's. They would declare him a disappointment, a genetic anomaly, a cautionary tale. Marcus Jordan, son of the greatest basketball player of all time, wasn't good enough for the NBA. He looked up at the hoop, silver in the moonlight. For the first time in his life, it seemed impossibly far away. 3 months after the draft, Marcus sat alone in his Chicago apartment. Outside, summer was fading into fall. Inside, time seemed frozen. The apartment walls were covered with basketball memories, his Whitney Young championship jersey, his UCF team photos, newspaper clippings of his best college games. Once, these had been treasures. Now they felt like mockeries. His phone rang. It was his father, calling for the 3rd time that week. Marcus let it go to voicemail, as he had the other times. He wasn't ready to talk. Not yet. The voicemail notification appeared. Marcus pressed play. "Marcus, it's Dad. I know you're there. I know you're hurting." Michael's voice sounded tired. "But life goes on, son. You've got your business degree from UCF. Jordan Brand has a position waiting for you in marketing. You'd be good at it. Call me back." Marcus deleted the message. Jordan Brand. Of course. The family business. The backup plan. The consolation prize. He walked to the window and looked out at the Chicago skyline. His father's statue stood at the United Center, just a few miles away. Michael Jordan, the greatest ever. What would Marcus Jordan's statue say? "Here stands the son. He tried his best?" His phone buzzed with a text from his agent, Tony Rodriguez. "Any thoughts on the Europe offer? Team in Spain needs an answer by Friday." Marcus sighed. Several European teams had reached out after the draft. offering contracts to Michael Jordan's son. Good money, but everyone knew why they wanted him. Publicity, ticket sales. The Jordan name would fill seats, even if the Jordan talent wasn't. NBA caliber, he typed back, still thinking. Next came a text from Jeffrey, his brother. Mom's worried about you, says you're not answering calls. You okay? Marcus stared at the message but couldn't bring himself to reply. How could he explain what he was feeling? The disappointment was just part of it. The shame was worse. The feeling that he had let everyone down, his family, his coaches, himself. He walked to the refrigerator and grabbed a beer. The fridge was nearly empty. He hadn't been grocery shopping in weeks. Hadn't been doing much of anything except sleeping late, watching old basketball games, and avoiding people's pity. A stack of mail sat unopened on the kitchen counter. Bills, cards from well-meaning relatives, and one large envelope from his grandmother's attorney. His father's mother, Dolores Jordan, had passed away the previous year. Marcus had been close to her. She was the one family member who never pressured him about basketball. He opened the envelope. Inside was a letter and a small key. Dear Marcus, if you're reading this, I've moved on to be with the Lord. Mr. Peters is sending this letter 1 year after my passing, as I instructed. I've always believed timing is everything. You're a special young man, Marcus. Not because of who your father is, but because of who you are. You have gifts that go beyond the basketball court. Gifts of compassion, insight, and understanding that this world desperately needs. The enclosed key opens a safe deposit box at First Chicago Bank on Michigan Avenue. Inside is something I've saved for you. Something I think you'll need right about now. Remember what I always told you. God never closes a door without opening a window. Look for your open window, Marcus. All my love. Grandma, Marcus held the small key in his palm, feeling a tightness in his chest. His grandmother had somehow known he would need her words right now. She had seen something in him that went beyond basketball. But what? His entire identity had been wrapped up in the game, in being Michael Jordan's son, in trying to live up to impossible expectations. Without basketball, who was he? He glanced at his laptop, open on the coffee table. The screen showed an email from UCF's Career Services Office, still offering help months after graduation. Next to it was an article, Life After Sports, How Athletes Find New Purpose. Marcus closed the laptop. He wasn't ready for a new purpose. Not yet. His phone buzzed again. This time, it was a text from a number he didn't recognize. Marcus, this is Ray Hughes. We met at your dad's golf tournament last year. Heard about the draft. Tough break. I had a similar experience. Picked late, cut after 2 seasons. If you want to grab coffee and talk, I'm in Chicago this week. No pressure. Marcus vaguely remembered Ray, former NBA player, now some kind of businessman. He'd been friendly, not overly impressed by the Jordan name. He started to ignore the message, as he had so many others. But something stopped him. Perhaps his grandmother's letter still in his hand. Her belief in him. Her certainty that he had other gifts. Marcus looked around his apartment, at the shrine to a basketball career that had ended before it truly began. Then he looked at his grandmother's key, small but somehow full of possibility. With a deep breath, he typed a reply to Ray. Coffee sounds good. When and where? Millennial Coffee Shop was busy when Marcus arrived. He'd chosen the small cafe in Fidjichwi, Chicago's West Loop neighborhood, because it was far from the touristy areas where people might recognize him. He wore a plain black hoodie with the hood up, sunglasses, and a baseball cap. his incognito outfit. Ray Hughes sat at a corner table, nursing a large black coffee. Marcus recognized him immediately. At 6'5", Ray had the lean build of a former athlete who still kept in shape. His closely cropped hair had touches of gray at the temples, and he wore casual business clothes, dark jeans and a light blue button-down shirt. "Marcus," Ray said, standing to shake his hand. "Thanks for coming." "Thanks for reaching out," Marcus replied, still not entirely sure why he'd agreed to this meeting. After ordering coffee, Marcus settled across from Ray. An awkward silence hung between them. "So," Marcus finally said, "you played in the NBA?" Ray nodded. "Milwaukee Bucks. Got drafted 47th in 1998, played 2 seasons, then got cut. Had a cup of coffee with the Sonics on a 10-day contract. But that was it. 3 years total." "At least you made it," Marcus said, unable to keep the bitterness. From his voice, Ray studied him for a moment. "True. But the fall hurts just the same when it's over." He leaned forward. "What are you doing with yourself these days?" Marcus shrugged. "Nothing much. My father wants me to work for Jordan Brand. There's a spot in marketing waiting whenever. I want it." "But you don't want it?" "It's charity. The Jordan name selling Jordan shoes." Marcus stared into his coffee. "More of the same." Ray nodded thoughtfully. "I get that. After the NBA, teams in Europe and China came calling. But I knew they wanted the name recognition, not me. It felt hollow." For the first time, Marcus felt a spark of connection with someone who understood. "So, what did you do instead?" "Fell apart for a while," Ray admitted with a wry smile. "Depression, drinking, the usual cliches. Basketball had been my whole identity since I was 10 years old. Without it, I didn't know who I was anymore." Marcus nodded, the words hitting uncomfortably close to home. "Then I got lucky," Ray continued. "Met a guy who saw something in me besides my jump shot. He helped me start a small business importing athletic equipment. Now, 12 years later, Hughes Enterprises employs 50 people and does $20 million in annual revenue." "That's impressive," Marcus said, meaning it. "But that's not why I wanted to meet you," Ray said, pulling out his phone and opening the calendar app. "I'm helping run a basketball camp for kids next weekend. Volunteers canceled at the last minute. I could use another coach." Marcus hesitated. "I don't know, man. Being around basketball right now is tough. These aren't elite kids, just normal kids from the South Side who love the game. No pressure, no expectations, just fun." Ray's eyes held Marcus's. Sometimes helping others find joy in something can help you find it again, too. Marcus thought about his grandmother's letter, about finding open windows when doors closed. "Okay," he said finally. "I'll help." The following Saturday, Marcus arrived at the small gym on Chicago's South Side. Kids aged 8 to 14 were already dribbling basketballs and shooting hoops, their energy filling the space with noise and life. "Coach Marcus is here." "Ray," announced, and 20 pairs of eyes turned toward him. A small boy with glasses approached cautiously. "Are you really Michael Jordan's son?" Marcus nodded, bracing himself for the usual comparisons. "Cool," the boy said. "My dad works at Walmart. Can you help me with my crossover?" Marcus laughed, caught off guard by the simple request. "Sure, kid. Let's see what you've got." For the next 3 hours, Marcus worked with the children on basic basketball skills. He demonstrated passes, corrected shooting forms, and refereed scrimmages. Not once did anyone ask why he wasn't in the NBA. Not once did anyone compare him to his father. To these kids, he was just Coach Marcus, who knew a lot about basketball and was giving them his Saturday. During a water break, Ray approached him. You're a natural with them." "It's just basketball," Marcus said. "No, it's not," Ray replied. "It's connecting, seeing what each kid needs and meeting them there. Some need encouragement, others need technique, and a few just need someone to notice them at all." Marcus watched as a shy girl at the back of the gym tried repeatedly to make a basket, missing each time but continuing to try. He walked over to her. "Can I show you something?" he asked. The girl nodded, her eyes wide. Marcus gently adjusted her elbow position and showed her how to follow through with her wrist. "Now try," he said, handing the ball back. She shot. The ball arced through the air and went through the hoop with a satisfying swish. The look of pure joy on her face hit Marcus like a physical force. "I did it!" she exclaimed. "You sure did," Marcus said, giving her a high five. "And now you know how to do it again." After the camp ended and the kids had gone home, Marcus helped Ray pack up the equipment. "Thanks for your help today," Ray said. "The kids loved you." "I enjoyed it more than I expected," Marcus admitted. "I have something else to show you before you go," Ray said. "Got time?" 20 minutes later, they pulled up in front of a modern building in the West Loop. A sign read, "Hughes Athletic Innovation Center." "This is the day job," Ray explained as he led Marcus inside. The space was impressive, part office, part gym, part tech startup. In one area, former college athletes worked at computers. In another, a woman was filming a workout tutorial. A conference room, a group was having an animated discussion around a table covered with papers. "What exactly do you do here?" Marcus asked, genuinely curious. "We help athletes transition to life after sports," Ray explained. "Some of them become entrepreneurs. Others find corporate jobs that value their teamwork and competitive drive. Some discover entirely new passions." He led Marcus into his office, which overlooked the Chicago skyline. Photos on the wall showed Ray with various athletes and business leaders. Awards and certifications lined a bookshelf. "The thing is, Marcus, most athletes face the same problem eventually. Whether it's after high school, college, or a professional career, the game ends for everyone. The question is, what comes next?" Marcus stared out the window, thinking about his father's seemingly endless post-NBA success. The shoes, the team ownership, the billions of dollars. "Some transitions are easier than others," he said quietly. "True," Ray agreed. "But here's what I've learned. The skills that make someone great at sports, discipline, focus, teamwork, performing under pressure, those translate to other areas of life. The athletes who struggle most are the ones who can't see themselves as anything but athletes." Marcus turned back to Ray. "And the ones who succeed? They're the ones who realize that sports was just one chapter of their story. An important chapter, sure, but not the whole book." Ray sat on the edge of his desk. "The question is, what do you want your next chapter to be?" Marcus thought about the basketball camp, about the girl's face when she made the shot, about how it felt to teach something he loved to someone eager to learn. "I don't know yet," he admitted, "but for the first time in months I'm actually interested in finding out." Ray smiled. "That's a start. And for what it's worth, I saw something today that has nothing to do with your last name or your jump shot." "What's that?" Marcus asked. "Vision," Ray said simply. "You see people, really see them. That's rare, Marcus, and valuable." As they left the building, the setting sun cast long shadows across Chicago's streets. Marcus felt something he hadn't experienced since before the draft, a small flicker of possibility. It wasn't hope, not quite yet, but it was something close. "Same time next Saturday at the camp?" Ray asked as they reached Marcus's car. Marcus nodded. I'll be there. For the first time in months, he had something to look forward to. Over the next few weeks, Marcus became a regular at Ray's basketball camp. Each Saturday, he arrived early to help set up and stayed late to work one-on-one with kids who needed extra attention. The simple joy of teaching the game he loved began to heal something inside him. One Saturday in November, Ray invited Marcus to visit the Hughes Athletic Innovation Center again. This time, several former athletes were gathered. In the main conference room, "Everyone, this is Marcus Jordan," Ray announced as they entered. "Marcus, these are some of our current clients." Marcus nodded hello, suddenly self-conscious. Would they see him as the NBA reject? Michael Jordan's failed son? A tall woman with short blonde hair approached him first. "Tina Reynolds," she said, extending her hand. "Former Olympic gymnast, tore my ACL in training and never made it to my second games." "Marcus Jordan," he replied. "Never made it to my first NBA game." Tina smiled, appreciating his honesty. Hurts, doesn't it? When your whole life leads to one thing, and then, poof, it's gone? Around the room, Marcus met the others. A former NFL running back whose career ended after a single season due to concussions. A college basketball star who'd lost her scholarship after a car accident. A high school baseball phenom who'd blown out his shoulder before he could sign a pro contract. All of them understood the same pain. The loss not just of a career, but of an identity. "What are you all doing here?" Marcus asked as they settled around the conference table. "Ray's program," Tina explained. "We're learning how to take what made us great at sports and apply it to something new." Ray stood at the head of the table. "Today we're brainstorming business ideas. Everyone has to pitch something, a product, a service, anything they're passionate about. Marcus, you're welcome to join in or just observe." For the next hour, Marcus watched as each athlete presented their idea. Some were obvious: sports equipment, training programs, nutrition products. Others were unexpected. The former NFL player wanted to start a tech company. The baseball player was interested in sustainable farming. When Tina's turn came, she hesitated. "I've been thinking about mental health services for athletes," she said quietly. "When I got injured, I lost my team, my coaches, my routine, everything. The physical therapy was great, but nobody helped me deal with the mental side." Marcus found himself nodding. "I know exactly what you mean." "So my idea is a support network," Tina continued, gaining confidence. "Connecting athletes who are going through career transitions with mentors who've been there before. Plus, professional therapists who understand sports psychology." "That's actually really good," the football player said. "Where were you when I got cut?" The group laughed, but Marcus could see they all connected with Tina's idea. He thought about his own experience. The isolation, the shame, the lack of direction. "What about you, Marcus?" Ray asked suddenly. "Any thoughts?" All eyes turned to him. Marcus hadn't planned to participate, but something about the energy in the room made him want to contribute. "Well," he began slowly, "what if it wasn't just mental health support? What if it was a complete system for athlete transitions? Financial planning, career training, networking, everything someone needs to find their next chapter." The room grew quiet. Marcus continued, the ideas flowing more easily now. Most athletes spend their whole lives developing one set of skills. When that doesn't work out, they're lost. But what if there was a place that helped them discover and develop other talents? Not just a safety net, but a launch pad. Ray was watching him with an interested expression. "Go on. It could be an incubator specifically for athletes," Marcus said. warming to the concept, using the same intensity and structure that worked for them in sports, but applied to business, education, whatever they're interested in. How would it be different from what Ray's already doing here? Tina asked. Marcus thought for a moment. Scale, accessibility. This place is amazing, but how many athletes know about it? How many can afford it? He turned to Ray. No offense. None. Taken, Ray said, smiling. Those are valid points. Plus, there's the credibility factor, the former baseball player added, looking at Marcus. No offense to Ray, but having someone with the Jordan name involved would open doors. Marcus felt a familiar discomfort. I don't want to use my name. It's not about using your name, Tina interrupted. It's about using your experience. You've lived this. So have we. That's what makes it authentic. Later, as the meeting was breaking up, Ray pulled Marcus aside. You were holding back in there, he said. You've been thinking about this for a while, haven't you? Marcus shrugged. Just some ideas that have been floating around. Well, they're good ideas. Ray handed Marcus a business card. My friend Elaine is a business consultant. Talk to her. See if there's something real here. I'm not a businessman, Marcus protested. I studied marketing, but I don't have any actual experience. Ray laughed. Neither did I when I started. Neither did your father when he launched Jordan Brand. The comparison to his father would have bothered Marcus before. Now, it felt different. Less like a measuring stick, more like a possibility. Think about it, Ray said. You've got something others don't, Marcus. You can see what athletes need because you're living it. As Marcus drove home that night, his mind was racing with ideas. For the first time since the draft, he wasn't thinking about what he'd lost. He was thinking about what he might create. The spark had been lit. Over the next month, Marcus threw himself into research. His apartment, once a shrine to his basketball past, became a workspace for his future. Sticky notes covered the walls. Spreadsheets and business plans filled his laptop. Books on entrepreneurship replaced basketball magazines on his coffee table. He met with Elaine Chen, the business consultant Ray had recommended. She was direct and no-nonsense, with 20 years of experience helping startups get off the ground. Your idea has potential, she told Marcus during their third meeting at her downtown office. But you need to answer 3 questions. Who exactly are you helping? What exactly are you offering them? And why should they trust you to provide it? Marcus spent days refining his answers. He interviewed former athletes about their struggles. He studied existing programs and identified gaps. He created surveys and sent them to college athletic departments across the country. One clear pattern emerged. The higher athletes climbed in their sports, the harder they fell when it ended. Those who had built their entire identities around athletic achievement struggled most to find new purpose. That's it, Marcus told Ray during one of their weekly check-ins at Millennial Coffee Shop. That's the problem I want to solve. Ray nodded. So, what are you going to call this solution of yours? Marcus had been thinking about this for weeks. Beyond the game. I like it, Ray said. Simple, clear, hopeful. The core idea is that being an athlete teaches you skills that are valuable in other fields, Marcus explained, excitement building in his voice. Leadership, resilience, performing under pressure, teamwork. Beyond the game will help athletes identify those transferable skills and find new ways to use them. And how will you actually do that? Ray asked, always the practical voice. A 3-part program, Marcus answered confidently. First, assessment, figuring out each athlete's strengths beyond their sport. Second, education, targeted training for their next career. Third, connection, introducing them to mentors and opportunities in their new field. Ray looked impressed. "You've thought this through." "I have to," Marcus said. "If I'm going to ask people to invest in this idea, it needs to be solid." The word invest hung in the air between them. Both men knew that turning this vision into reality would require money, probably a lot of it. "Speaking of investors," Ray said carefully, "have you talked to your father about this yet?" Marcus shook his head. "I wanted to have everything mapped out first. I don't want this to be another handout." Ray understood. "Well, you're getting close to that point. Let's start thinking about a formal pitch." 2 weeks later, Marcus stood in the conference room at Hughes Athletic Innovation Center. Ray had arranged a small gathering of potential investors, 5 people who had experience funding startups in the sports and education sectors. Marcus had practiced his presentation. For days, he'd created slides, rehearsed answers to possible questions, and even bought a new suit for the occasion. But as he looked at the expectant faces around the table, his confidence wavered. These were serious business people. Would they see beyond his famous last name to the merits of his idea? Or would this be another situation where being Michael Jordan's son created impossible expectations? "Whenever you're ready, Marcus," Ray said encouragingly. Marcus took a deep breath and began. "Thank you all for coming today. I'm here to talk about a problem that affects millions of athletes every year. The challenging transition from sports to what comes next." As he spoke, Marcus shared statistics about athlete depression after retirement, stories from his research interviews, and data showing how few college athletes were prepared for careers outside their sport. "This isn't just about professional athletes," he explained. "It's about anyone who has devoted significant portions of their life to sports and then has to figure out what's next, whether that's after high school, college, or a pro career." The investors listened intently, occasionally taking notes. Marcus couldn't read their expressions, but at least they weren't checking their phones or looking bored. "My solution is beyond the game," he continued, revealing the simple logo he'd designed, a silhouette of an athlete stepping through an open doorway. A comprehensive program that helps athletes transition their skills and passions to new areas. He outlined the 3-part approach: the potential business model and the partnerships he hoped to establish with colleges, professional leagues, and corporations looking to hire former athletes. When he finished the formal presentation, Marcus looked around the room. "Any questions?" "Several," said a woman in a crisp black suit. Her name tag read, "Victoria Winters, Altitude Ventures." "First, what makes your program different from existing athlete career services?" Marcus had expected this question. "Personalization and community," he answered. "Most existing programs offer generic advice. We'll create individualized transition plans based on each athlete's specific skills and interests. And more importantly, we'll build a community of peers who understand exactly what they're going through." Victoria nodded, making a note. "And your revenue model?" "Tiered services," Marcus explained. "A free basic level available to any athlete, funded by corporate sponsorships. Premium services would include one-on-one coaching, advanced training, programs, and exclusive networking events. We'd also partner with companies looking to recruit former athletes." The questions continued for nearly an hour. Marcus answered each one thoughtfully, admitting when he didn't have all the answers, but showing he'd considered most angles. Finally, an older man who had been quiet throughout the session spoke up. "I have one last question, Mr. Jordan. Why, you? What makes you qualified to lead this venture?" The room grew silent. It was the question Marcus had been both expecting and dreading. "6 months ago, I watched the NBA draft with my family," Marcus said, his voice steady. 60 names were called. Mine wasn't one of them. After 15 years of training, thousands of hours of practice, and a successful college career, my basketball journey ended. Not on my terms, not with a championship, just ended. He paused, letting that sink in. I spent the next 3 months in a dark place, questioning everything about myself. If I wasn't a basketball player, who was I? What was I good for? What came next? I had no answers. Looking around the room, Marcus saw they were all paying close attention now. I've lived the exact problem I'm trying to solve. I understand the identity crisis, the loss of purpose, the fear of starting over. But I've also discovered that there is life beyond the game, maybe even a better life. That's what qualifies me. Not my basketball skills, not my college degree, and, with all due respect, not my last name. What qualifies me is that I'm still standing after my worst fear came true, and I want to help others do the same. The room was quiet when he finished. Then Victoria spoke again. Your idea has merit. Mr. Jordan, the execution needs work, but the concept is sound. She glanced at the others. I think we're all interested in continuing the conversation. There were nods around the table. Marcus felt a wave of relief. After the investors left, Ray clapped him on the shoulder. You did good. Really good. They didn't say yes, Marcus pointed out. No, but they didn't say no, Ray replied with a smile. In the investment world, that's a win for a first pitch. Marcus nodded, processing the experience. One of them suggested something that makes me uncomfortable, though. What's that? They want me to be the face of the company. My story. My journey. Marcus frowned. I don't want this to be about me. It's not about you, Ray corrected him. It's about what you represent. You're the proof that the program works. Someone who found purpose after sports ended. As they packed up the presentation materials, Ray added, There's just one more person you need to pitch to before we go any further. Marcus knew exactly who he meant. It was time to talk to his father. The drive to Jupiter, Florida, where Michael Jordan had built his primary residence after buying the Charlotte Hornets, gave Marcus plenty of time to think. He'd chosen to drive rather than fly, partly to save money, but mostly to give himself time to prepare. The 16-hour journey from Chicago took him through 5 states, each mile bringing him closer to a conversation he both dreaded and needed. Marcus hadn't been to his father's Florida mansion in over a year. The sprawling 28,000-square-foot estate, complete with a basketball court, golf simulator, and cigar lounge, was a testament to Michael Jordan's success. As Marcus pulled through the security gates, he felt the familiar weight of his father's achievements pressing down on him. A staff member greeted him and led him through the house to the back patio, where Michael was sitting by the pool, smoking a cigar and reading something on his tablet. "Marcus," Michael said, standing to embrace his son. "Good to see you." "You too, Dad," Marcus replied, noticing the slight awkwardness between them. They hadn't spoken much since the draft. They settled at an outdoor table overlooking the golf course. A server brought them drinks, water for Marcus, whiskey for Michael. "So," Michael said, after a moment of silence, "Ray Hughes called me." Marcus wasn't surprised. Ray had warned him that he might reach out to Michael. "He says you've been working on something?" Marcus nodded. "A business idea for athletes transitioning out of sports." Michael leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable behind his sunglasses. "Tell me about it." For the next 20 minutes, Marcus outlined his vision for beyond the game. He explained the problems athletes faced after their playing days ended, the gaps in existing support systems, and his 3-part solution. He was more nervous than he'd been with the investors, but he kept his voice steady. "I've already pitched to some potential investors," Marcus concluded. "They seemed interested, but I wanted to talk to you before moving forward." Michael removed his sunglasses, setting them on the table. His eyes, the same eyes that had stared down countless opponents on basketball courts around the world, studied his son. "Why now?" Michael asked. "You've barely returned my calls for months, and suddenly you're driving 16 hours to pitch me a business idea." The question caught Marcus off guard. He'd prepared to discuss financials, marketing strategies, competitive advantages, not his emotions. "I needed time," he admitted. "After the draft, I was lost. I didn't know who I was anymore." Michael nodded slightly, encouraging him to continue. "All my life, I've been trying to follow your path," Marcus said, the words tumbling out now. "Not because you pushed me, but because it seemed like the only option. If you're Michael Jordan's son, you play basketball. That's the rule." "There are no rules, Marcus," Michael said quietly. "Maybe not for you," Marcus replied, "but for me? Every time I stepped on a court, people were measuring me against you, and I knew I'd never measure up. How could I? No one could." Michael's expression softened. "I never wanted that for you." "I know," Marcus said, "but it happened anyway. And when I didn't get drafted, it felt like I'd failed, not just at basketball, but at being your son." Michael started to speak, but Marcus continued. "But these past few months, working with Ray and developing this idea, I've realized something. Maybe not making the NBA wasn't a failure. Maybe it was just a redirect to something I'm actually meant to do." For a long moment, Michael was silent, looking out over the golf course. When he turned back to Marcus, his eyes held an unexpected shimmer of tears. "You know," Michael said finally, "when you were born, basketball was everything to me. My whole identity. I couldn't imagine being anything else." He took a sip of his whiskey. "So I pushed you toward it because it was what I knew, what I understood." He shook his head slightly. "Maybe I didn't see what you were really meant to do." Marcus felt a tightness in his throat. In all their conversations about basketball over the years, his father had never been this vulnerable. "So what do you think?" Marcus asked. "About beyond the game? I think it's a solid concept," Michael said, shifting back into businessman mode. "The market exists. The need is real. But running a startup is harder than anything you've ever done, including basketball." "I know that." "Do you? 90% of new businesses fail. The hours are brutal. The stress is constant. And everyone will be watching you because of your last name." Marcus nodded. "I've thought about all that. It's still what I want to do." Michael studied him. "And you're here because you want my investment?" "Yes," Marcus said honestly, "but also your advice, your connections, your experience." Michael smiled slightly. "At least you're direct about it." He reached for his cigar. "How much are you looking for?" Marcus named a figure, enough to fund the company for 2 years of operation. Michael didn't flinch at the number. "I can do that. But if I put money in, I'm an investor, not just your dad. You'll have to prove yourself, show results, meet deadlines. I won't go easy on you because we share DNA." "I wouldn't want you to," Marcus said. "And one more thing," Michael added, his eyes serious. "If you take my investment, you can't quit when it gets hard. And it will get hard. Harder than anything you faced in basketball." "I won't quit," Marcus promised. They talked for hours after that, diving into the details of the business plan. Michael asked tough questions, pointed out potential problems, and suggested improvements. It wasn't the conversation of a father and son. It was the conversation of a veteran businessman and a determined entrepreneur. As the sun began to set, casting orange light across the water, Michael finally leaned back in his chair. "Okay," he said. "I'm in. But not because you're my son, because it's a good idea that solves a real problem." He paused. "And because I've never seen you this passionate about anything before." For Marcus, those words meant more than the investment. His father had seen something in him, something that had nothing to do with basketball. As they walked back toward the house, Michael put his arm around Marcus's shoulders. "You know," Michael said, "it takes courage to create your own path, maybe more courage than following someone else's." Marcus looked at his father, the legend, the icon, the man whose shadow he'd been trying to escape his entire life. "I learned that from you," he said. 3 months after his meeting with his father, Marcus stood in a small office space above a gym in downtown Chicago. The room was nothing special, just 500 square feet with faded carpet, a few desks, and windows that rattled when the wind blew. But it was the first official headquarters of Beyond the Game, and to Marcus, it felt like a palace. "It's not much," he said to Tina Reynolds, the former Olympic gymnast who had become his first employee. "But it's a start." Tina looked around, the space nodding. "It has potential, like the athletes we're going to help." The funding from Michael Jordan had come through as promised, along with a short list of contacts his father thought might be helpful. But Marcus had insisted on starting small, being careful with every dollar. He wanted to build something real before scaling up. "So," Tina said, setting down a box of office supplies on one of the desks, "what's our first move?" Marcus had thought about this question a lot. He pulled out a notebook where he'd written 5 names. "These are our first clients," he explained. "Athletes who've hit transition points and need help figuring out what's next." He pointed to the first name. James Williams, former college football star, blew out his knee senior year, working at his uncle's tire shop, but hates it. "And we're going to help him how exactly?" Tina asked. "First, we listen," Marcus said. "Really listen. Find out what he's good at, what he cares about, what skills he developed as an athlete that could transfer elsewhere." He moved to a whiteboard he'd mounted on the wall and wrote, "Assess, educate, connect." This is our process. We assess their skills and interests. We provide education in areas they need, and we connect them with opportunities and mentors. Tina studied the board. "Sounds simple when you put it that way." "Simple doesn't mean easy," Marcus replied. The first month was harder than either of them had expected. James Williams, their first client, was resistant to change and suspicious of Marcus's motives. "Why you doing this?" James asked during their initial meeting. "What's in it for the son of Michael Jordan to help a nobody like me?" "I'm not my father," Marcus answered calmly. "And you're not a nobody. We're just 2 guys trying to figure out our next moves." Slowly, James began to open up. They discovered he had a talent for explaining complex ideas in simple terms, a skill he'd developed breaking down football plays for younger teammates. With Beyond the Game's help, James enrolled in a teaching certification program and began coaching part-time at a local high school. Word spread about the small startup helping athletes find new paths. More clients came, some referred by Ray Hughes, others by college coaches Marcus had reached out to. Each success story led to more referrals. But there were struggles too. The office rent was higher than Marcus had budgeted for. The website he'd paid a developer to build crashed constantly. And worst of all, some potential partners were skeptical about working with the inexperienced son of a famous father. "They think this is just a rich kid's hobby," Marcus complained to Ray during one of their regular coffee meetings. "Something to keep me busy after failing at basketball." "Is it?" Ray asked bluntly. Marcus was shocked. "Of course not. I believe in what we're doing." "Then prove it," Ray said. "Focus on the clients, not the critics. Results speak louder than last names." Taking Ray's advice, Marcus doubled down on client success. He developed a more structured assessment process. He brought in experts to lead workshops on resume building, interview skills, and personal branding. He spent hours making calls to open doors for his clients. 4 months in, Beyond the Game had worked with 15 athletes, helping 12 of them find new career paths or educational opportunities. It wasn't changing the world yet, but it was making a difference. One evening in late September, Marcus was working alone in the office, long after Tina had gone home. The bills for next month's rent and utilities sat in front of him, along with their dwindling bank balance. Despite the positive client outcomes, the business was burning through cash faster than he'd anticipated. At this rate, his father's investment wouldn't last the full 2 years he'd planned for. A knock at the door startled him. It was nearly 10 p.m., too late for visitors. Marcus opened the door cautiously. A young man stood in the hallway, maybe 20 years old, with the broad shoulders of a football player. His eyes were red, like he'd been crying. "You, Marcus Jordan?" he asked. Marcus nodded. "I'm Dion Taylor. I played running back at Michigan State. Got cut from the team last week. Coach gave me your card." He held up a Beyond the Game business card with Marcus's number. "Said you might be able to help." Marcus stepped aside. "Come in." For the next hour, Marcus listened as Dion poured out his story. Football had been his ticket out of a tough neighborhood in Detroit. Without it, he feared he'd have to drop out of college and go back home. "I don't know who I am without football," Dion said, his voice breaking. "I've been playing since I was 6. It's all I know." Marcus felt the weight of responsibility in that moment. This wasn't just about building a business anymore. It was about helping someone who was living the same nightmare he had faced. "What are you studying?" he asked. "Communications," Dion replied. "But I only picked it because it was supposed to be easy for athletes." "Do you like it?" Dion thought for a moment. "Parts of it. I like the social media stuff. I have a decent following on Instagram where I post workout videos." Marcus nodded, an idea forming. "Have you ever thought about sports marketing? Using your knowledge of athletics to help brands connect with athletes?" Dion shook his head. "Never considered it." By midnight, they'd put together a plan. Marcus would help Dion apply for marketing internships with sports brands. Beyond the Game would provide a small scholarship to help him stay in school. In return, Dion would help manage the company's social media accounts, creating content to reach more athletes. As Dion was leaving, he turned to Marcus. "Why are you doing this? You don't even know me." "Because someone did it for me," Marcus answered, thinking of Ray. "And because you deserve a second chance, just like I did." After Dion left, Marcus stayed at his desk, staring at the bills he'd been worrying about earlier. They still needed to be paid. The financial challenges remained, but somehow they seemed less important now. On the wall above his desk was a single framed email, the first message he'd received from a client who'd successfully transitioned to a new career. "Marcus, just wanted to say thanks. For the first time since my injury, I'm excited about the future. You changed my life." "James," Marcus read the email again, then turned back to the bills. They would find a way. This work mattered too much to give up now. The dream was worth building, no matter how hard it got. 2 years had passed since the launch of Beyond the Game. What had started in a tiny office above a gym had grown into something Marcus could be proud of. They now occupied a proper office space in downtown Chicago with a staff of 6 full-time employees. The walls displayed success stories, photos of former athletes who had found new purpose with their help. On paper, things looked good. They had served over 100 athletes, helping them transition to careers in business, education, healthcare, and technology. Their assessment process was refined and effective. Their network of mentors and partner companies was growing. But behind the scenes, problems were mounting. "We need to talk about finances," said Ellis Grant, the accountant Marcus had hired 6 months earlier. They sat in Marcus's small office, spreadsheets spread across his desk. "How bad is it?" Marcus asked, though he already knew the answer. "We've got about 3 months of runway left at our current burn rate," Ellis explained, pointing to the numbers. "The grant money from that foundation is delayed. 2 corporate sponsors haven't renewed, and we're spending more per client than we're bringing in." Marcus nodded, his stomach tight. The problem wasn't that they were failing, it was that they were succeeding too well in the wrong ways. Clients loved the personalized attention. Word had spread. More athletes were coming through their doors every week. But the business model wasn't sustainable. "What about my father's investment group?" Marcus asked. "Could we go back for another round?" Ellis hesitated. "We could, but they'll want to see better numbers this time. More focus on revenue, not just impact." That afternoon, Marcus had a scheduled video call with his father, who was traveling in Europe. These quarterly investor updates had become increasingly tense as the business struggled financially. "The impact metrics look strong," Michael said, after Marcus presented the latest client success stories. "But the financials are concerning." "We're helping people, Dad," Marcus responded, trying to keep frustration from his voice. "That's the whole point." "Helping people is great," Michael replied evenly. "But if you run out of money, you won't be helping anyone." After the call, Marcus sat at his desk, staring at the framed email from their first client, James Williams, now a high school teacher and coach. A knock at his door interrupted his thoughts. Tina entered, holding a tablet. "Bad time?" she asked, seeing his expression. "Just the usual money worries," Marcus admitted. "What's up?" Tina showed him the tablet. "Have you seen this?" On the screen was a sleek website for something called Athlete Next, a new program offering career transition services for former sports stars. The company behind it was Ultimate Performance, a giant in the sports training industry. "They launched today," Tina explained. "Their pitch is almost identical to ours." Marcus scrolled through the site, his heart sinking. Ultimate Performance had resources beyond the game couldn't match. Celebrity endorsements, slick marketing, and deep pockets. "They're offering free services to any former Division I athlete," Tina continued. "It's clearly a loss leader for them to sell their training programs, but it undermines our entire business model," Marcus finished. That night, Marcus called an emergency meeting with his core team. Tina, Ellis, Dion, now their marketing director after graduating from Michigan State, and 2 other employees. "I won't sugarcoat it," Marcus told them. "We're facing 2 major threats, money problems and new competition. I need your ideas." For hours, they debated options: raise prices, cut services, focus on a narrower client base, partner with universities. The discussion grew heated at times, with Ellis pushing for financial discipline while Tina argued for maintaining their comprehensive approach. "What about a merger?" Dayon suggested during a brief lull. "Ultimate Performance clearly sees value in what we do. Maybe they'd want to acquire us rather than compete with us." Marcus had considered this but struggled with the idea. If we get absorbed by a bigger company, will we still be able to fulfill our mission? Or will we just become a marketing tool for them? The meeting ended without clear answers. As everyone was leaving, Marcus noticed that several staff members had stayed late without being asked, working on proposals and ideas long after their paid hours had ended. Their dedication touched him deeply. The following week brought more challenges. A board meeting with investors, including representatives from his father's group, turned uncomfortable when someone suggested replacing Marcus with a more experienced CEO. "This isn't personal," the investor said. "It's about bringing in someone with more business experience." "It feels pretty personal," Marcus responded, keeping his voice steady. His father, joining by video, remained silent during this exchange, his face unreadable. His silence hurt more than any criticism. Later that day, Tina found Marcus in the empty conference room, staring at the whiteboard covered with financial projections and competitor analysis. "You okay?" she asked. "Just thinking," he replied. "About why we started this in the first place." Tina sat beside him. "I remember. To help people like us find their way after sports. And are we still doing that?" "Better than anyone else," she said without hesitation. "Ultimate Performance may have fancier offices and bigger budgets, but they don't understand athletes the way we do. They see us as customers. We see us as people." Marcus nodded slowly. "Then we need to find a way to keep going." As he drove home that night, Marcus took a detour past the United Center, where his father's statue stood illuminated outside the arena. For most of his life, that statue had represented a standard he could never reach. But tonight, it reminded him of something else: persistence. Michael Jordan hadn't become great by giving up when things got hard. The path forward wasn't clear yet. But Marcus knew one thing for certain: he wasn't giving up. Not on his company, not on his clients, and not on himself. Marcus arrived at the office early the next morning, determined to find a solution to their problems. He made coffee and sat at his desk, reviewing everything they'd built over the past 2 years. There had to be a way to save, beyond the game. His phone buzzed with a text from Dion. "Turn on ESPN, now." Marcus switched on the small TV in the corner of his office. ESPN was showing a basketball game from the night before. He was about to text Dion back when the broadcast cut to breaking news. The announcer's voice was solemn. "We have difficult news from last night's game between the Lakers and the Mavericks. Star point guard Calvin Williams suffered what appears to be a career-ending injury in the fourth quarter." The screen showed footage of a player landing awkwardly after a jump shot. Even before the medical staff rushed to the court, Marcus could tell it was bad. He'd seen enough sports injuries to recognize when an athlete's career just ended in an instant. Calvin Williams was a 3-time All-Star, only 28 years old, in the prime of his career. The sports world would be talking about nothing else for days. "Our thoughts are with Calvin during this difficult time," the announcer continued. At only 28, the question now becomes, what's next for someone who's been playing basketball since childhood? Marcus stared at the screen, those words echoing. In his mind, what's next? That was the question beyond the game had been created to answer. He grabbed his phone and called Tina. "I saw it," she said before he could speak. "Terrible news for Calvin." "Yes," Marcus agreed, "but maybe we can help." "Marcus, I know what you're thinking, but Calvin Williams is a major star. He'll have agents, financial advisors, and PR teams handling his transition." "Maybe," Marcus said, "but will any of them understand what he's really going through? The identity crisis? The fear? The question of who he is without basketball?" There was a pause. "You're thinking of reaching out to him directly?" "Exactly. That's Ambitious, Tina said carefully. But how would you even get to him? Marcus thought for a moment. I have an idea. 2 hours later, Marcus was sitting in Ray Hughes's office, explaining his plan. You want to offer Calvin Williams our services, Ray summarized. Use his transition as a case study to show what Beyond the Game can do. Not exploit his situation, Marcus clarified. Actually help him. Show him there's life after basketball. And yes, if he has a positive experience, maybe others will notice. Ray leaned back in his chair. Calvin plays for the Lakers. I know their general manager from my playing days. I could make an introduction. He studied Marcus for a moment. But are you sure about this? If it goes badly, if Calvin rejects your help or has a negative experience, it could damage your reputation. I understand the risk, Marcus said, but we need to take bold action if we're going to survive. And more importantly, Calvin needs help whether he knows it yet or not. That afternoon, Ray made the call. 3 days later, Marcus was on a flight to Los Angeles. The meeting took place at a private rehabilitation facility where Calvin was beginning his recovery. Marcus had expected to meet in a conference room, maybe with Calvin's agent and managers present. Instead, he was led to a small garden area where Calvin sat alone in a wheelchair, his heavily bandaged leg extended in front of him. Calvin, Marcus said, extending his hand. I'm Marcus Jordan. I know who you are, Calvin replied, his voice flat as they shook hands. Your dad's Michael Jordan, and you run some kind of career program for athletes. Beyond the Game, Marcus confirmed, taking a seat across from him. We help athletes find purpose after sports. Calvin looked out across the garden. The doctors say I'll never play again. Shattered kneecap, torn everything, nerve damage. His voice was empty of emotion, as if he were reading a weather report rather than describing the end of his dream. I'm sorry, Marcus said simply. Yeah, everyone's sorry. ESPN is sorry. The team is sorry. The fans are sorry. Calvin finally looked directly at Marcus. But none of them understand. I do, Marcus said quietly. Calvin laughed without humor. No offense, man, but you do not know what I'm going through. You're Michael Jordan's son. You've got everything handled. Marcus took a deep breath. When I was 22, I sat in my apartment and watched the NBA draft. 60 names were called. Mine wasn't one of them. Everything I'd worked for my entire life was over in one night. Calvin's expression changed slightly. His attention caught. For the next hour, Marcus shared his story. The depression that followed the draft, the identity crisis, the slow journey to finding new purpose. He didn't pitch Beyond the Game or offer solutions. He just talked honestly about his experience. When he finished, Calvin was quiet for a long moment. So you started this company to help other athletes going through what you went through? He finally asked. Marcus nodded. I was lucky. I had Ray Hughes and eventually my father's support. Not everyone has that network. Beyond the Game tries to provide it. Calvin gestured to his injured leg. I've got money. I've got fame. I've got people calling with opportunities already. Broadcasting, coaching, endorsements. What I don't have is anyone who gets what this feels like. Marcus understood completely. The opportunities aren't the problem. It's figuring out which ones actually mean something to you. Which ones might give you purpose, not just income. Exactly, Calvin said, sounding surprised that Marcus understood. That's what we do, Marcus explained. We help you figure out who you are beyond the game. 2 weeks later, Calvin Williams held a press conference announcing his retirement from professional basketball. To everyone's surprise, He also announced that he would be working with Beyond the Game, a transition program founded by Marcus Jordan to explore his next chapter. ESPN covered the announcement live. Suddenly, Beyond the Game was in the national spotlight. Marcus watched the press conference from their Chicago office, surrounded by his team. "Our phones are ringing off the hook," Dion reported, looking up from his computer. "Athletes, agents, teams. They all want to know more about us." In the days that followed, everything changed. Calvin's endorsement opened doors that had been firmly closed before. Sports teams reached out about partnership programs. The NBA Players Association wanted to discuss making Beyond the Game an official resource for retiring players. College athletic departments expressed interest in bringing the program to their campuses. Most surprising was the email that arrived from Ultimate Performance, the competitor that had launched Athlete. "Next, they want to discuss a potential merger," Tina announced, reading the message over Marcus's shoulder. "On favorable terms." For the first time in months, the future of Beyond the Game looked secure. But as Marcus sat in his office that evening, reviewing all the new opportunities, he felt a strange mixture of excitement and caution. Success was coming, but it was bringing new challenges. Would rapid growth change their mission? Could they maintain their personalized approach while serving more athletes? Would bigger partners try to water down their message? These were good problems to have. Much better than wondering how to make payroll. But they were problems nonetheless. Marcus's phone buzzed with a text from Calvin. "Meeting with ESPN tomorrow about a documentary series. Thanks for your help with the prep. This never would have happened without you." Marcus smiled as he replied, "That's what we do. Help you find your next chapter." And in helping others find their way, Marcus had finally found his. 5 years had passed since draft day. 5 years since Marcus Jordan had faced his greatest disappointment. 5 years of building something that was entirely his own. Beyond. The Game now occupied an entire floor in a sleek office building in downtown Chicago. Photos of success stories lined the hallways. Hundreds of athletes who had found new purpose after their playing days ended. The staff had grown to 30 people, many of them former athletes themselves. Marcus stood at the window of his corner office, looking out at the Chicago skyline. The view included the United Center, where his father's statue stood. Once, that sight had filled him with anxiety. Now, it was just part of the landscape, a reminder of excellence, but no longer a shadow that defined him. His assistant knocked on the door. "Your car is here, Marcus. The ceremony starts in an hour." Marcus nodded, straightening his tie in the reflection of the window. Today, Forbes magazine was honoring him as part of their 30 Under 30 list for social entrepreneurship. Beyond the IBUNIU Game had helped over 2,000 athletes transition to new careers, and their model was being adopted by colleges and professional leagues across the country. The venue was packed when Marcus arrived. Business leaders, athletes, and media filled the ballroom of the Chicago Grand Hotel. As he made his way through the crowd, people stopped him to shake his hand or share stories about how Beyond the Game had helped someone they knew. "There he is," Ray Hughes approached, arms outstretched. "The man of the hour," they embraced warmly. Ray had become more than a mentor. He was family now, a partner in building Beyond the Game from a struggling startup to a recognized leader in athlete transitions. "I wouldn't be here without you," Marcus said. "You saw something in me when no one else did." "I just pointed out what was already there," Ray replied with a smile. "You did the real work." As they talked, Marcus noticed a familiar figure entering the ballroom, surrounded by security and admirers. Michael Jordan still commanded attention wherever he went. his presence filling any room he entered. Father and son made eye contact across the crowd. Michael nodded slightly, a small smile on his face. Their relationship had evolved over the years. Michael had remained an investor in Beyond the Game, but he had kept his promise to treat Marcus as a businessman, not just his son. Their quarterly meetings were still challenging, with Michael pushing Marcus to think bigger and do better. But there was respect there now. Mutual respect. Before the ceremony began, Marcus slipped away to a quiet corner to gather his thoughts. He scrolled through his phone, rereading a text message from Calvin Williams, whose partnership had sparked Beyond the Game's growth years earlier. Killing it on ESPN. Third season of my show starts next month. None of this would have happened without you. You changed my life, man. The ceremony began with speeches and introductions. When it was time for the social entrepreneurship category, a video played highlighting Marcus's journey and Beyond the Game's impact. Marcus Jordan faced a choice, the narrator said, over footage of Marcus working with athletes. Live in the shadow of his famous father, or forge his own path. He chose the latter, and in doing so, has helped thousands of athletes find their own way forward. When Marcus took the stage to accept the award, he looked out at the audience. In the front row sat his team, Tina, Dion, Ellis, and others who had believed in the mission. Ray watched proudly from a table near the center, and there, at a table in the back, was his father, who had rearranged his schedule to be there. "Thank you for this honor," Marcus began. 5 years ago, I was at the lowest point in my life. I had just gone undrafted by the NBA, and I felt like I had failed. Failed myself, failed my family, failed to live up to expectations. The room was silent, everyone listening to the son of the greatest basketball player ever admit to his disappointment. But what I thought was failure was actually a redirect. Sometimes life takes away the one thing you think defines you, forcing you to discover who you really are. Marcus went on to talk about Beyond the Game's mission, thanking those who had helped along the way. As he finished, he looked directly at his father. "I want to thank my father, Michael Jordan, not just for his investment in Beyond the Game, but for teaching me the most important lesson of all. That true greatness isn't about living up to someone else's legacy. It's about having the courage to create your own." The applause was thunderous. As Marcus left the stage, his father met him at the bottom of the steps and embraced him tightly. No words were needed. After the ceremony, Marcus hosted a celebration dinner for his team and close friends at a restaurant near their office. The mood was festive, with toasts and stories shared around the table. Late in the evening, as the party was winding down, Tina pulled Marcus aside. "There's something I've been meaning to ask you," she said. "That first day, when you pitched your idea to Ray's investor group, why did you decide to focus on athlete transitions? You could have done anything with your name and connections." Marcus considered the question. He'd asked himself the same thing many times over the years. "You know, the night after the draft, when no team called my name," Marcus paused, his voice growing quiet. "I was in a really dark place. I felt like I had nothing left to live for." Tina's eyes widened. She had never heard this part of the story before. "That night, I actually thought about ending everything," Marcus admitted. "I was sitting in my father's house, looking at all his trophies and accomplishments, feeling like the biggest disappointment in the world." "What stopped you?" Tina asked softly. "A phone call," Marcus said, "from one of my grandmother's old friends. She didn't know what I was thinking, but she called to tell me stories about my grandmother, how she always said I had a different path than my father. how she believed I had gifts that went beyond basketball. Marcus smiled at the memory. That call saved my life. It made me realize that maybe there was something else I was meant to do. And then, months later, when I started working with Ray and meeting other athletes who were struggling with the same feelings of loss and confusion, "You found your purpose," Tina finished for him. Marcus nodded. Exactly. I realized that my greatest failure could help others navigate their own disappointments. What I thought was the end of my story was actually just the beginning. As his friends and colleagues continued celebrating around them, Marcus looked out the window at the Chicago night. He was no longer defined by the draft that didn't want him or the father whose shadow once seemed inescapable. Marcus Jordan had stepped into his own light, and it was bright enough to help others find their way forward too. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Are you tuning in from Chicago like Marcus, or somewhere else entirely? If you enjoyed this story of how Michael Jordan's son transformed rejection into purpose, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support means everything and helps me continue bringing you these inspiring stories of transformation and hope. Don't forget to share this video with friends and family who might need to hear that setbacks can become redirects to something meaningful. Every share spreads a little kindness and awareness that our greatest disappointments sometimes lead to our most important contributions. What other inspiring stories would you like to hear next? Drop your suggestions in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next video.